The purpose of this video is to demonstrate the teaching and learning methods of shooting in basketball. I began by getting the pupils to read out the learning objectives, which were to be able to perform a basketball shot and to identify the technical points of shooting. The reason I got the students to read out the learning objective is so that they have a clearer recollection of the intentions of the lesson. I moved on to explain the key points which must be considered when shooting. Before shooting, you must ensure that your eyes are focused above the rim, toes are pointing towards the rim, that your dominant foot is slightly forward, and that your back is straight. Prior to taking the shot and when taking the shot, key points to remember were to keep shoulders square and level, spread fingers wide as possible, full extension at the elbow when releasing the ball, and to ensure that you flick the wrist during and after release of the ball. I then progressed into demonstrating how a basketball standing shot should look like when following the teaching points. As you can see, there is a clear flexion of the knees and extension at the elbow. There is also the final flick of the wrist when releasing the ball. The flexion of the knees and extension of the elbow enables the player to create both height above the rim and power to reach the basket. The flick of the wrist is to add extra backspin towards the ball when it is released. After demonstrating a clear model, I moved on to allowing Ben to partake in a core activity called Around the World. Ben will be shooting from various locations of the court. He will start from a short distance away from the basket and progress further each time he makes a shot into the basket. The purpose of this activity is to grasp an understanding of the various shooting locations and distances on court, allowing him to apply this understanding into a game situation. I then gave Ben a leveled criteria which he was able to read and identify what level he was performing at in context to the skill. The criteria was made up of levels 1 to 5. Each level contained key elements and characteristics which a player must possess to be categorized into that level. After reading and identifying himself into a level, I then effectively questioned Ben to why he thought he was in that level, and through effective questioning, Ben was able to diagnose the problems he had when performing. I was then able to come up with some breakdown skill activities to overcome those weaknesses Ben experienced. So Ben, what was your score when you performed this task?
3 out of
10?
10.
Yeah, 3 out of 10. So that puts you in the level 2 category in my criteria.
Yeah.
When performing that core task, what sort of feedback did you get from it? Like, what happened when you were doing it? How did you feel?
Right, well, I was hitting the rim quite a bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes not even reaching the net.
Okay.
So from that,
yeah.
I think.
So what do you think occurred? What do you think happened for that to happen? In the result of that?
Yeah. From that, I reckon my problem is I can't quite get enough power. Like, I'm not getting enough elevation on the ball to get it over the rim.
Okay.
So I think I really need to work on my technique in bending my knees and in extending my arm, getting the power on it.
Okay. Well, we'll put you through some core activities to break it down and to help you, and hopefully you'll improve by the end of this lesson.
Nice one.
A problem Ben identified was lack of flexion in the knees. To overcome this, I used a constraint-led activity that focused on allowing flexion at the knees. Ben began in a seated position and only shot when in the act of standing up. This activity emphasized on flexion at the knees by the constraint of starting in a seated position. The second weakness Ben identified was lack of extension at the elbow. I again used a constraint-led approach similar to that of Mule. I placed an opponent to stand in front of Ben at toe-to-toe level. This forced Ben to extend his elbows in order to get the ball over the opponent and also above the rim. The final activity I thought would be most beneficial for Ben was to put him in a constraint-led game situation. Playing 2 versus 2, players were only allowed to shoot the ball when stood on the mat. These mats were placed in various locations of the court. These locations were primarily shooting positions in a real game situation. This enabled Ben to use external skills such as moving into space to enable him to get into shooting position, as you can see in these examples. Ben was able to both pass and move into shooting positions and was able to apply the technical points of shooting, which resulted in him making a successful basket, as you can see here in these examples. After the breakdown activities were completed, Ben partook in the initial core activity which he completed early in the session. As a result to the constraint-led activities, Ben was able to improve his score in comparison to past results. In the second interview, Ben identified his strengths and was able to both list the key technical points of shooting and demonstrate the shooting technique with consistency. This evidentially progressed Ben from a level 2 performer to a level 3 or 4 performer. I would like to thank you for watching this video, and I hope the information and demonstrations given has come about to help you.